Good morning. It is Thursday morning, the 26th of June. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wengler. Slightly late start to the morning. Slightly late start. I've been up since 5:30. Nathan's been up since 2 minutes ago. So,
that's fine.
I just had to give you some crap, man. It's all good, dude. Hey, I told you I did it yesterday. I didn't quite sleep in to almost 2 minutes before the show. Had I not called you, would you have woken up?
There's probably a healthy debate there. Typically what I do, you'll hit the snooze, whatever. A lot of people that do, but then they'll go in and we'll actually pick out a time, be like, all right, like maybe another 15, and then I'll wake up. That didn't happen. I just pressed the button and then I was just gone again. And so, no, I mean, there's probably a good situation there where no, I don't. But anyways, I love the fit that you got on today.
Oh, thanks.
You look ready to rock and roll.
Can't wait till so I have a flag polo shirt too, right? So it's like for 4th of July. So I'm looking forward to wearing that bad boy.
Good stuff.
Yeah, I actually bought these last year. I think I actually wore one on. Well, it was during one of our broadcasts, but not obviously the podcast didn't start until January. But remember, we were talking about my trip to Mexico, and I purchased all these polo shirts for that trip, and I never got to wear them in Mexico. So I get to wear them now doing this. But I know, right? So but anyways,
very Jimmy Buffett-esque.
Well, yeah. I mean, I mean, it's like I was going to Cabo, right? So I mean, I was trying to look as
That's fair.
Yeah.
Are you a Jimmy guy though?
No. I mean, I ate his cheeseburger in Paradise place a couple times.
Oh, that's good.
All
right.
But no, I'm not a big. I'm not. I mean, I like some of his music, but here's the thing. I've told I'm not a music guy. I mean, I listen to music, but I'm not like if you said John pick the best. I'm just not that guy. And it's not because I don't like music. It's just because it's never been something that, like, for me, it's always been like movies. I can name movies. I can name actors, actresses. You asked me to name songs, dude. Yeah, no way. Now I know what I like.
Yeah, I'm never the type to like pull references or like lines from movies though. Like there's some people that know like lines from movies and different things like the back of their hand. I get a little bit of that from you as well as Dan Stickrat too. Whenever I'm down at the studio, like I was yesterday, y'all can pull out some stuff from time to time. I got a smorgasbord of music taste, but yeah, no movies. I feel like you can pull them out left and right from time to time.
It's actually funny because yesterday we were in the studio. You were there, and if we're trying to find a way so we could show the world what our studio environment's like in a busy Friday, Saturday, Wednesday night. We had a good amount of people there last night. I think we did 20 broadcasts in total yesterday, and I don't think you probably even realized it. You were there. It doesn't seem chaotic, right? We're just all kind of doing our thing, which is really kind of nice. But during all of that, we had these teams that try. They try their darndest to get us a feed. They try so hard, and ultimately it doesn't happen. And so last night, my daughter Brianna, she's at Station 6, and she's doing a game, and she's like, "But Dad, they try so hard to get us a feed," and it just made me think of this moment in The Rock with Sean Connery, where it's him and Nick Cage, and it's like towards the end of the movie,
Right.
and The Rock, the Sean Connery, he's having a dialogue with Nick Cage, and Nick Cage is like, "I'll do my best," and what he says, when Sean Connery says is, "Well, losers say they do their best, winners take home the prom queen." And then he's like, Carla was the prom queen, and he cocks back his pistol, and it's like, it's just like I was thinking of that. I actually played that scene during the night. I'm like, I got to show everybody this scene, right? Because it's funny because it's like, I tried, and it leads me to this conversation, right? Where this point this morning, as we kind of dive into stuff, is, trying, right? Like, is trying enough? I mean, you're doing my best. And I was funny because as soon as I said played the scene in the studio last night, a lot of the people in the studio are people were talking about trying and that hey, what if you don't succeed? Is that have we somehow blurred the lines of what success means, and is trying enough? And from my perspective, no, it's not, because if trying were enough, well, I mean, I think surgeons try every day to save people's lives, right? And trying, and then people do die. So to the family that lost their family member, do they think that they care the doctor tried? I mean, probably not. I mean, the best
Mhm.
outcome was one in which the patient was survived. Again, I just hey, we went out there and tried to win. We lost. You know, is trying enough? And more importantly, what does that even, I guess, mean? Because I guess not all trying is equal. Not all I'm going to give it my best, right? Because what I think is your best versus what you think is your best, you know, what anybody else thinks, it's all perception. So
Right.
I wanted to talk about that this morning because as we live in this world where even as we talk about the U.S. men's national team, we talk about the MLS, we talk about these things, is trying. I mean, is that acceptable for us? I tried. I didn't
I'd say
win,
it's
but we
bare minimum.
tried. Like,
Say it's a bare minimum. You know, you like effort is the one thing that you can't coach. I mean, I would say you've been in that position, and this is why I like having these conversations about these things because of you formally having been a coach. Obviously, I've been involved in athletics for a while, and it's not just athletics, right? It's everything else. But trying is the thing that you can't coach. And it's the one intangible thing that you can't instill into someone. They just have to have that ability uniquely. Trying is the basic base level. That's it. Like you have to try first and then everything else can happen beyond that. So I mean, is it everything? Does it make the difference at the end of the day? Like to your example, like the doctor or whatever, or especially once you get to if you're at a higher level, like if you lose by a lot in a sport, are they going to sit there and go, is the New York media going to be like, well, the Knicks, they tried again this year, but they didn't make it, but they still try? No, I mean, you're not going to get congratulated for trying. It's the bare minimum, right? Um, what you do with that matters, but then again, not everybody puts in that extra effort though. Because I think when you try, quote, try, and there's different levels of that. Like there are people who are willing to sacrifice, there are people who are willing to go to certain lengths. Then there are people who are trying, but also not necessarily giving it their all. So the line could be a little blurry at times, but in my opinion, JT, that's the bare minimum. That's like step one. Everything else beyond that, we can figure that out. But to try, I mean, that's just the first step. And you know, you can try your hardest and not succeed, and that's the hardest part. So we've all been there, and that's where the kind of the growth comes into play. But trying is step one. That's the base level.
yeah, I look at it like this though. And say if you're everything's about perspective, at least in my opinion. And
Yeah.
you talk about athletically, right? You talk about in the sports world. And I go back to Allen Iverson when he played for Philadelphia. Practice? We're talking about practice? Remember, like that whole thing? Like we're talking about practice.
Right.
We're talking about practice. Now, Allen Iverson, we could argue, is a generational player, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a player. And when I say generation, he's not a greatest. We talked about this. There are certain athletes that maybe don't transcend time, but during their period of time, they were very, very good and they had an impact on the game. And I would say Allen Iverson is one of those players. You could argue about that a lot of other players as well.
Right.
He's a player that could go out there and maybe not give it his all and still be unbelievably great. You know what I mean? And not give a hoot, right? And basketball, and to be fair, is one of those sports too because of how much players are involved.
Mm-hmm.
in those games. Because again, you think about this: how often does a player touch the ball in a soccer game compared to a basketball player touching the ball? Like, you're probably
Very
touching the ball
different.
almost every single possession. I mean,
Yeah.
for the most
Yep.
part, right?
Yep.
So I think vastly different sports, but in different environments. But that's an example of where again, look at Shaquille O'Neal in his career, right? He did not offensively, arguably not a great free throw shooter, not a great outside field goal shooter, right? We know that about him.
Right.
But what
You
was
can
he
tell
great
when.
at?
Yeah.
He took to his strengths and he played those strengths. Now, someone
Right.
could argue, well, if he tried harder on learning how to shoot better and all that kind of stuff, but ultimately he found a way to say, I don't need to try at that. I just need to be great at these things. I need to be
Right.
great at this, rebounding, great at this, right? And saying these and doing these things, and ultimately became, a very, very good basketball player, one in which we can talk about for the rest of time. And so when I hear the word "I tried," to me it sounds like a cop out, right? To me it sounds like like, hey, I tried. No, I mean, yeah. See, it's one thing to say I tried. It's another thing to turn around and say I gave it everything I possibly could, and it just didn't work out. Way
Mm-hmm.
different mentality and a way different way of saying it. It's the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It's the exact same thing, but it's a
Right.
mindset. Hey, coach, I give it everything I have. I have nothing left in me. You walk off the field and say that to a coach, they're gonna be like, okay, man, you put their hand on your shoulder and say, go take a seat, right? I come
Mm-hmm.
back out on the field and say, hey, coach, I tried.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
what
tried.
do you mean you
Yeah.
tried? Like,
Right.
what does that even mean? You tried to
Yep.
do what? Like, so I feel it's a mentality thing for me,
Mm-hmm.
and like saying I did my best. Okay, well, again, it's like I don't know if that, and again, understanding how when it's coming and how it's coming out as well. Like if you're coming off the field and you can see someone just gassed and all they have in them is say, "Hey, coach, I gave it the best I could."
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it,
Yeah.
but I don't look at it that same way because in my experience of hearing people say those things, I feel like it's a cop out. Like I gave it my best, coach. I gave it my best, John. I did this. I tried. Like okay, well, I'm glad you tried. I think that's great. I think the first step to understanding, is to say, "Hey, I did something."
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if a doctor came out of the operating room and said we tried,
Yeah.
that was what they said to me. We did our
Yeah.
best. I'd be like, dude, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
I want to hear like, hey, we we did everything we could. I mean, we spent an hour and a half trying to save that person's life. Like
Yeah.
that's what I want to hear like that. And you know what? You hear that, then even though it's terrible news, at least in your brain in that moment, you believe that this person actually did do everything they could.
Yeah.
Not this. Oh, I tried. I gave him my best. We saw
Owning up
seven.
to it.
Yeah, it's
That's
like
the biggest part of it.
accountability.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, that's where the other part of it comes in. Like I said, trying is the baseline, but if you don't succeed, if you don't get exactly what it is that you want, if you don't meet expectations, accountability is the other biggest part of that. And people notice that too. So you can try, you can give everything you have, but where people really start to accept what it is that you're doing is when you're able to take that accountability and you're able to be like, okay, like what do I need to do to get better? Because the other thing, and I learned this early on, is like there's no real need. Not to say there isn't really a need, but why would you ever want to focus on the things that you're weak at or that you're not good at, as opposed to just optimizing what it is that you are dominant at and you're very good at? I think Shaq's a good example. I mean, I know this isn't a basketball podcast, but the truth is he didn't succeed in certain areas. I mean, he was like very bad at shooting free throws, very bad at some of those other aspects of the game. But where he was dominant was where he really focused on becoming the best. And when you look at it in terms of players who could just kind of change the entire complexion of the game, he was one of them. I mean, they had to change backboards and rims. They had to change the infrastructure of how they literally built these things because they had someone like Shaq out on the floor. And it's because he leaned into that side of his game. I mean, even when he came out of college, like he was, he wasn't the big behemoth of a man that I think we came to know in the NBA. He was someone that ran the floor. He was someone that in a lot of ways was kind of almost like a new age big, like face to the basket, could run the floor, could finish at the rim. But then as he got later into his career, he was probably trying, again, to your point, he was probably trying some of those things, got into the NBA, realized, okay, that's not going to pass going up against the oak trees that I'm going up against in this league. So, hey, let me figure out where I fit in, let pack on a few, and really build onto my size. Let me learn how to back my way down and dominate the paint. And he did all of those things. So, like I said, trying and giving effort and caring is the bare minimum. That's why when we talk about the U.S. men's national team for a little bit there, the conversation was always like, are they trying? Like, do they care? Once we started to see that come in, it was like, okay, well, the young group, at least from what I've seen in the Gold Cup so far, is trying and they do care. Now, how do we figure out how to win games consistently? And not only that, how do we win the games that really matter coming up? Because again, Costa Rica is no pushover. Mexico is no pushover. By the way, I thought that was a really fascinating game from yesterday that I did. That's some of the most fun I've ever had calling a soccer game. I'm not going to lie. I realized it was 1-0, but that I went back and I cut up all the different little interactions throughout the game, and that resembled more of a WWE match than it did a soccer match. And so very entertaining, very, very entertaining. We can get to that here in a little bit. But like I said, trying is one thing, but when you have to take accountability, and you also have to lean into your strength too. And so that's the other side. But I get everything you're saying.
Yeah, and again, it leads us into we open this up with this point, and I think it's important to to ask this question. And if you're obviously just tuning in here, the question that we asked is trying enough? And I'm going to put it on the screen right now. Is trying enough? Is that how we can measure ourselves? Is that how we measure the is that a measuring stick? And first off, can you even measure it? To be fair, I think that's an important thing in itself.
I think you
But
can
if
measure
you're
effort.
I mean, I guess you can. I mean, from a coaching perspective, I could look at effort from an intangible, and I could use it as a barometer for an outcome, but I could not measure it. Like I could not, because again, you look at it from the standpoint of we would always address this during tryouts. I would go to our players, and say, hey, as a coach, I know it's going to be tough. I know that running 2 miles in 12 minutes is going to be a challenge. What we're looking for from you is not stopping, right? And I would not tell them to walk, to run. Obviously, we want them to run, but I would not tell them that they couldn't walk. I would just say, we don't want to see you stop. We want to see you complete the task. All right, so complete it. And so you would see players who would run the mile in 2 quarters, and then they'd be gassed, and they would just stop. They'd give up. They'd give up. And because for me, I'm not looking to see if they can finish in the fastest time. I'm looking to see if they can finish and how far they're going to push themselves, right? And sometimes you need other people to do that. You and I both know that when you go out and want to go to the gym, you want to go running. If you have someone with you, it's just a way better experience because you have someone to kind of gauge yourself with and kind of pace. Right. Pacing is a real thing. And so, we would try to get players to do that. And we would say, we're not measure. Yes, obviously, we're going to measure you based on how fast and how far you can run. Of course we are. But right. I also want to measure how far you don't run and if you give up. And so let's go out there and do that. And you'd be amazed at how many kids just gave up. And so, yeah, they tried. But did they complete the task? My daughter was like, well, what if I tried and I failed the test? I go, okay, but you tried. But why did you fail?
Mm-hmm.
What you didn't fail because you tried.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You failed because you didn't try hard enough. You failed because you didn't study long enough. You failed because you didn't understand the information. There's a lot of reasons as to why you might fail. But trying is not one of the reasons why you failed.
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing to say as well. Right? The reason that the men's national team go out on the field, they're not losing because they tried. They are losing because there's a lack of something in the trying effort. There's a lack of something. It's a lack of skill. It's a lack of understanding. It could be a lack of effort. There could be a number of reasons, and probably 1,000 reasons as to why they did not succeed in winning a soccer game. But trying doesn't do anything. Yeah, I mean, I tried to drive a car, but I could not find my keys. I tried, but I could not start the car because I didn't have my keys. I tried to take the garbage out, but I forgot. I mean, there's a number of things that you can say you did that will not result in the completion of the project or the completion of the goal. And I think, as a culture, a generation, and I can attest to this because I have 3 children who I'm raising. I hear I tried all the time. Trying, well, did the task get done?
Yeah.
No. Well, why didn't it get done? Well, I forgot. I started it, but I forgot. Or I got distracted. Right? Think about the distractions that we have in today's world. And we were talking about the New York Knicks yesterday, right? And there's a great thing about playing in a big city, like New York, like California, or LA, like Chicago, like San Francisco. There's a thing about playing in big cities. But if you're a Green Bay Packer, player, do you think you're as distracted when it comes to the environment in Green Bay as if you were in LA? Do you think we is just distracted by the environment in, I don't know? I'm just thinking about Jacksonville compared to that of New York. There's no way.
Mm.
There's no way. I mean, you
Mm.
can't walk down the streets of New York, Manhattan, and not be distracted by the media. I mean, there's so many things that could distract you.
Right.
And so you could argue that one of the reasons why that maybe the Knicks aren't the greatest basketball team is because the players are constantly distracted by the environment that they're in.
Yeah.
Their market is huge. I mean,
Mm.
L.A., Chicago, and New York are the largest 3 markets in the country. And that means that you have 7 million people at all times wanting to know what you're doing and
Mm-hmm.
bothering you, and 300 radio stations talking crap about you, and
Mm-hmm.
17 news stations talking shit about you, not to mention
Mm-hmm.
the national outlets as well. So it's like you have the constant distraction. I tried, coach.
Yeah.
I tried. Oh, yeah, you did. You sure did try.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah,
Imagine
but
imagine trying out that line in the clubhouse or in the locker room afterwards when you have those media scrums. And I never get sick of seeing that because someone pointed it out to me once, like in New York, like they'll box you out, man. Like they'll fight for position, like media members. It's almost like a sport itself when you're out in that environment, and especially in that culture too, because they're not really ones to ask. They're not going to ask fluff questions. They're not going to toss you softballs. What they're going to do is they're going to be direct. Why didn't you produce? Stick the microphone in your face. Well, saying that you tried again doesn't really resonate. You know what I mean? That's not really going to get you very many positive, warm, cuddly responses from the people who are asking you those questions because the expectation is if you're in that environment, you're going to succeed. Talking about New York specifically, I was even having this conversation yesterday. I was like, if a New York job ever came along, like I would take it in a heartbeat and I'd be there because it's the Mecca. It's the Mecca. It's as much as I'm sure there's a lot of people that, and I mean I'm one of them. I would never want to live in New York City, but if I had a good situation and if I was put in a good place, and let's say the Knicks or the Mets or the Giants or the Jets or even the Yankees came along and they're like, hey, we need a guy, like I would be there because it is the Mecca. But with that comes a certain set of expectations. With that comes, again, you have to produce. If you don't produce, you have not only the pressure of Hollywood on your shoulders, right? Because we see Hollywood Row every time they have playoff games, but you also have the pressure of the media. And they're not the people that are going to just take I try as a viable excuse. That's not something they're going to do. And so you're right. I mean, like, obviously you have to try. And if you're in that situation, you better be trying. Otherwise, you're not going to stay around for very long. But that just doesn't work as an excuse at the end of the day because if you're not winning, there's a reason for that. And especially when you're 50 plus years out from your last NBA championship, like then you've had 50 plus years of trying to figure this out. What's your combination? Who do you have? Who works in these certain spots? I think people acknowledge that trying isn't enough. But as an athlete, on the other end, you're like, well, I guess it's all I could do. There's different things that probably have to change. There's probably they got to shift a few people around, maybe get some new faces in there, maybe mix things up so that they can better handle the teams they're playing against. I don't want to get too deep into the weeds on this but I know that, obviously New York constructed their roster to go up against Boston. That didn't end up happening. But at the same exact time, again, trying and giving effort is the basic. No, but I feel like that's also something that's hard to come by. I mean, you mentioned even generational things sometimes, and it's rough because this has always been the way it's been in history, right? The past generation is always going to say that the current generation is, quote, lazy in comparison to them. We see it all the time. I mean, you probably got it from your parents, and now with your kids and that generation are probably feeling the same exact way. It's just is how it is. It's a process. But sometimes I feel like, maybe this generation doesn't necessarily, either they don't try or they try in their own ways, but that's where it starts, right? Like effort is the bare minimum, but that's not going to pass. With a lot of people, that's not going to pass.
No, and we could beat it, to death. And for the sake of time for the show, we'll move on here in a moment. I think that, again, from my perspective, trying is a beginning point. It's not the end point. And so as long as, because I look at this, there's this mentality that people talk about when it comes to like starting your day, right? And it's like, getting out of bed, not hitting the snooze button, even though we all do it, right? I do it constantly. Does that make me like a non-productive person? But then you hear like these CEOs who are like, they get up at 5 o'clock in the morning or at 4 o'clock in the morning, they work out for like 3 hours, then they go after all egg yolk, whatever, and then they're done by 4 o'clock every day, and they're in bed by 7. It's like, I don't subscribe that everybody needs to be successful by getting up at 4 and doing. I don't do all that, okay? And I don't necessarily subscribe to the fact that you have to be like in the best shape in the world in order to be successful. I also think that that's not a thing. However, there is a thing about being in the right mentality. There is a thing about understanding what it takes to be successful. And I do believe that players who are playing at the highest of levels understand that, right? I think the problem is complacency, right? I think problem that is ego. And that was on display last night. We talk about. I had to have a conversation last night with a company in the USA, and they're when someone has to throw out how good they are at something on a phone call, to kind of show boat, I guess, as a negotiation tool, or I don't know, just to make them look. I don't know. To be fair, I'm not sure why anyone does that. I don't make it a habit to do that. But this individual did, and it's like, and for what? And for what reason? Right? Because they wanted to try to show who they were. And there's nothing wrong with doing that if it's done in the right context. I mean, like me and you, we have conversations all the time, Nathan, about like our resume and what we do.
Yeah, but you don't see me throwing it around.
No, at the same time though, like I mean, as the president and CEO, and I hate to say it, as the founder and the president and the CEO of this organization, I could take every game I wanted. It's like,
Yeah.
like I could really just say, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, and there are certain games that I absolutely take. But like, last night you drove in to call a game on CBS on WNEM, an international friendly from a team from Guadalajara, Mexico. I think they're from Guadalajara. Well, they're over the border, right in Mexico.
Right.
I'm Flint City Bucks. I could have absolutely taken that game yesterday. What? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, and it's like, I mean, I don't, and so ego aside, I also don't want to call every game. Right. So it's like pick and choose, which ones do I want to do, which ones I don't want to do. But I also think there's something to be said about giving somebody an opportunity. Because if you succeed,
and we succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yep.
And that's the thing I think it's lost in this world. Not entirely, but I think it is lost because if you're, and let's be honest, Lionel Messi would not be successful if he didn't have a supporting cast who could also do something with the ball.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is, how many times have you seen the beautiful passes that he has initiated and then was the recipient of after the initial pass,
Mm-hmm.
and it's led to a goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we can talk all day long about how great he is, but he's actually a really great teammate. He tries to get the best out of his players and his teammates, and so that's a real thing. And so when you hear the phrase "I tried," yeah, see how long that will last in Messi's mind, how that will last in Ronaldo's mind, in Pele's mind, right? How that would last in Kobe Bryant's mind. You know, I know Kobe Bryant's no longer with us, but do you think that he went from a mentality of "I tried"? That guy bought a helicopter because he knew he was wasting time in traffic and he could get 2 more hours back in his life every day. That's why the man got a helicopter in the first place,
Yeah. Yep.
right? I
Yep.
mean, so and that in itself, right? What he explained his training regimen. Tiger Woods. Now, granted, Tiger Woods can't do what he used to do, but he was hitting 1,000 golf balls a day, like or some crazy number, 10,000 golf balls a day,
Yeah.
right? I tried. You know, Michael Jordan, again, generational player, one of the greatest basketball players of our time, of our lifetime. Think he walked around going, "I tried"?
Mm-hmm.
There's no way on God's green earth that man would say that. He
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say, "I tried." Now, he might say that to baseball because he did try in baseball. I mean, you know, he gave it a valiant effort.
Right.
Maybe he says, "I tried in baseball."
Did
But
play minor league ball for a little bit.
he
I
did, he
yeah.
did. But I mean, again, it's like this mentality, though. It's like, and again, it's probably indicative, to be fair, of the everyone gets a ribbon, you know, growing up. You know, everyone got a ribbon. You know, everyone should get a participation trophy for just showing up. No,
Yeah.
I mean, no. You know,
Right.
no, we don't count runs at little. What do you mean you don't count runs? Why are we even here? Well, these kids don't know what winning is. Well, we don't want them to get hurt. Well, that's what life is. My goodness, have you not seen the parents fighting on the sidelines?
Yeah.
You would think the way these parents act on the sidelines that they're betting something in this t-ball game, right? There's money on the line. Dad is out there going, "Why is this guy not safe?" And he's punching the umpire over it. I mean, like
Vegas got
clearly
into
there's
youth athletic.
it's like I mean, no, it's indicative of the environment that was created because we decided as administrators that winning didn't matter anymore. It's just about trying. We just need you to try. No, we need you to go out there and win.
Right.
Yeah, we need you to go out there and win. And you know what? If you don't win, that's okay. That's okay, because guess what? You're going to go into a job interview one day against 10 other people, and you're not going to get it. And you're going to be like, "Well, I tried." And what? You think they're going to give you the job just because? No. That's not how that works. They're going to try to hire the best person for the job for the least amount of money. That's how that works, people.
Yeah.
And it's like, why are we? I try. I don't know if it to my core, but it's pretty damn close. I tried. Great. I'm glad you tried. I'm glad you gave it a valiant effort. That's fantastic. What was the result?
Yeah.
What did you do? Did we win? No, we didn't. So then your trying wasn't enough.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't enough.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough today. Does that mean tomorrow it won't be enough? Maybe it will be. Maybe tomorrow it will be. Maybe the opponent you're facing tomorrow is not as good as the one you faced today. And the trying you did today will be enough tomorrow.
Right. Yeah.
Trying. I tried. It just I hear that and to me it's like an excuse. It's an excuse for failure.
Yeah.
It's and I don't subscribe to it. I think that I know that using that phrase is a cop out.
Right.
And again, we talk about it all the time. When you see it, like yesterday, there was no doubt in that game that both those teams wanted to play and fight hard. There was no doubt. Physically, there was no doubt. And yeah, I got chippy at times. Why? Because both teams want to win that game. That was very evident yesterday. I would say more evident than a lot of times we watch other games. And that was a friendly, which again, I think is a terrible name for a game, by the way. I think it's when you start calling things friendly. There's nothing about that game yesterday that was friendly.
No.
And so it's like, but if you was, I tried, no, they battled.
Yeah.
We battled yesterday. Both teams battled yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And so that, to be fair, way better. And my dog is barking. I apologize.
I hear her jingling all over the place when she walks. It's kind of funny, man.
Yeah, she's on a nice wood floor. She's barking, and now she's at the back. He at the back door.
All right.
Yeah, he's barking. But But anyways,
Yeah.
Rocky.
Yeah.
Um,
And being an I and a me person just doesn't translate too. And that's the dangerous thing that we always get into. And it can be in any sphere, it can be in the sports sphere, wherever else. But when your constant obsession is over I, me, what do I get out of this? What do I see? What do that's when things really start to fall apart because you aren't looking for the best way for everyone to succeed. I like the mentality of you're right. I mean, good things that happen to me is good things that happen to us. And you have to look at it that way because if you don't, and your first reaction is always, what do I get out of this? Or where do I fit in? Or where do I then it really kind of takes away from everybody else and you're not making everybody better. I think that's a great point, right? And that's why sometimes we get so obsessed with talking about individual players like a Messi, like a Ronaldo. They wouldn't be there if it wasn't for their ability to make everybody else around them that much better. Like you have to make the environment you're in conducive to winning in order to win. That's why just learning how to win is a really hard thing to do. But once you get there and once you understand what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like, then everything else around you is going to take off. And frankly, JT, I think athletes, as well as people in the media, as well as people in the business world, they're all the same. They all have the same thing because they have to figure out how to make everyone else around them better before they themselves can succeed to the level that they want to. And that's really hard to come by when you're dealing with people who are so obsessed with I and me that they can't see the bigger picture in things. And we've run into personalities like that. You've run into players like that. You understand what exactly that means. And it does it mean that everybody's on top of their game? No, everybody fails. Like, and that's so, and especially in our business, right? And what we're trying to do and attempting to do and have been attempting to do because of, and maybe we've been honest about this to a fault, but I guess I'd rather be honest than anywhere than anything else. But there are going to be failures, there are going to be shortcomings, but what are we doing to rectify those issues and to make the situation better? That's what really matters at the end of the day. And are we doing it as a team and are we embracing each other in that process? I would say yes, conclusively that we are. And so it's not a matter of, okay, well, I tried, that's it, I failed, it is what it is, move on to the next thing. No, figure out a way you can make it better. And the way you can make it better is by, again, not making everything about I and me, but more about we and us. Like that's where the conversation should be. And you and I had a really good talk earlier this week about language and how that matters. Again, if there's ever an issue or if there's ever something that we have to tackle, like as a network, like it's we, it's us. It's not I, it's not me. That's where this really can get messy. And there's a lot of, I'm the firm believer that there are a lot of individually extremely talented athletes, people who are part of our business, our line of thinking, whatever out there, who could go to further lengths. But if you're not easy to work with, if you're not someone that's team oriented, if you're not someone who, again, focuses on the we and the us in that conversation and they only focus on the I and the me, you have to look out for yourself. Okay. I get that, uniquely, especially in our field, like you have to. If you don't, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. You're going to get buried down. You're going to lose opportunities to people who are more willing to be in front of you than than you are. So there is some element of that. Like you still have to be able to go out and protect yourself and fight for what you want. But when you get caught up in 24/7, it's always about I and it's always about me, you're going to stunt your own growth because people aren't going to want to work with that. I mean, I imagine like even Messi, with how unbelievably talented he is, if he was never willing to work in cohesion, and this is why soccer is a beautiful game, right? Because you need 11. Like one guy can't go out and beat 11, right? You need all 11. So, if he was someone who was always just so obsessed with I and me, and if, Ronaldo was always that way, and any of these other guys, they wouldn't, you're right, they would not be to where they are today. I mean, we even like look at the basketball game, right? Because we made reference to that. I think the reason why I think LeBron is arguably the best of all time isn't necessarily because of his individual accomplishments, but how good he's made his team around him. I mean, you don't get to the promised land 12 times or whatever it is that he's been. Obviously, he hasn't won all of them, but he's gotten there. I mean, there was an entire decade of kids that all they knew was LBJ going to the NBA Finals, and that was because every team he went to, and you even see this with the coaching staffs, like they would literally get coaches to fit his style of play. Same thing with Messi, same thing with all these other superstars in the soccer football game. Um, they had to get managers and people that actually were able to craft a game plan around them. So that's where the I and the me comes in. If you're good enough and people know that, you're not just trying again, like we were talking about, but you're succeeding, they're going to build something around you that is able to help you go out and win games. But if you're all about me, and you're more of a cancer in a locker room than anything else, you're going to find yourself out on the outs a heck of a lot quicker than you are anywhere succeeding within that environment or succeeding personally. That's the biggest problem in my mind. And even listening to that conversation or other conversations or just other experiences that I've had in this broadcasting world, I get that, and the unfortunate thing is, I think sometimes people decide what they're worth, but their valuation of what they're worth is coming from them. It's not coming from everybody else. That's the issue. You know what I mean? And I can sit here and be like, yeah, well, I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I should be in Major League Baseball right now. Well, really? Well, I'm not, you're not. You're not. So therefore you're not there. So you have to learn how to play nice and get along with people and do the things you should do to put yourself in those opportunities to have the chance one day to be there. But there's something uniquely wrong with that attitude. Well, I should be here. Well, you're not. You're not there. So what do you have to do to get there? Like it's not just good enough to just sit back and go, "Oh, I should be," or "I'm better than everybody else." You're not, because you're not there. Okay, so that's where the problem in my mind comes into play, because you're right. Like the willingness to not only work with people but be open to different ideas and make everyone else around you better. All of that comes back to help you in the long run. Right? Now, I don't know if you're a believer in karma, JT. I don't know if that's a thought that you subscribe to, but I think that's a very real thing. I think if energy, I think, is one thing. I think if you put good energy out into spaces, that you're going to get that energy back. Obviously, we know certain, individuals that we run into that just don't put good energy out into the atmosphere. Because of that, you're not going to get good results. You can't expect to have good results if all you do is carry yourself that way. So you need that, you need the ability to embrace the suck, and kind of go through that with a positive attitude of, there are other people that are watching over me. There are other people that have my back. And that's a good feeling to have. All of these things play into it. All of these things play into it. And trying, again, effort is something that really should not even be a question. It's not a question to successful people. Are you going to fall shy? Yeah. I mean, to your example, sometimes you're going to hit the snooze and never wake up again. I mean, there are things that happen in there that probably are not good looks. But is effort the absolute bare minimum? Yeah, and it should not be a question. To successful people, it's not a question. It's something they never have to worry about, because they realize that the effort is always going to be there. Now, they always acknowledge that, just because you put in effort doesn't mean you're going to get the results. And I know that to be true. Just because I try so hard in this area or that area, I could try my hardest to be the best soccer announcer I possibly can be. That doesn't mean it's going to put me over the top or put me over anybody else. Simply because, again, I'm still learning and I'm still getting better at that sphere in my life, and I am getting better. But you know, trying is one thing, but when you can attach tangible results and when you can show the impact you've had on other people, that's when trying actually has some sort of weight to it. But like, no, in my mind, no. To answer your question, no, trying is not enough. Effort is the baseline. What do you do with that? Do you make other people better? Do you make your environment better? Do you put good energy out into the world? All of those things that come after it are the things that you can really measure and be like, okay, you're moving in the right direction, you're making a positive impact, or you're a cancer, you're pulling back, you're making things worse. So that, again, we're talking bare minimum here when it comes to effort. Everything else on top of that, we can figure that out as we go, but that's where it really starts, is just at least being able to put in that effort, that energy, that elbow grease to make yourself go to the lengths that you want to go.
Yeah, so I think going back to what you talked about self-preservation, it is a real thing, and obviously from a company standpoint, it's very important. We're not just protecting, individuals; we're protecting the business, and if you look at it from like the NFL standpoint, they call it protecting the shield, right? And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of debate about that. Me and you've had a lot of personal conversations about what you enjoy, what you love to do, and what I said. Hey, from our perspective, what that would look like in a full time environment, what that would look like in a continued part time, whatever that might be, and we try to communicate that. I think we communicate that in a way that allows us to both be on the same page, so that you and I can move on the right, because we're on the same highway and we're going at the same speed. And when you're not going at the same speed, you're going in the opposite direction. That's when things can become a problem. And I absolutely want you or anyone else for that matter that works for us or is part of our organization, whatever role that might be, to be successful. And I remember my wife would always talk about this a lot too when she was in the restaurant business. Was she would talk about how getting someone who maybe came in as a busser, right, and they'd become work in the kitchen as a cook, and then they might go from a cook, to maybe in a management position. Like watching that growth, right? Like her dialogue with people was like, yeah, I want to see you go from this to this to this to this. We want to see you, and one day having your own restaurant like that. And having a lot of people that go do that and start to rise, like that's a testament to the kind of leader that you are,
Yeah.
right? And so that's a really important characteristic within an organization is how people can grow within the organization. But I also think it's important to acknowledge that we live in a world today where there's this complete and utter it's disconnect
People want to skip
between.
steps.
Well, it's not about skipping steps, but there's like a disconnect between like what you should and shouldn't be doing. I mean, like I would never in a million years would have thought that I would see somebody filling out their resume in front of me in our environment. Like I would never in a million years thought about that, but that's an actual thing that I saw, like legit. And again, and there, we offer this is part time, right? You're taking a couple, but again, you're like you're gonna bring in your computer and work on a resume while you're on a job site, like that just doesn't make any sense to me. But that's the world that we live in. It's like how many people do that? Now, I'm not saying that in a former life when I was working for another company, if I had my own personal laptop, I wouldn't have pulled it out. Maybe I don't think I ever did that during a company time because I don't want people to think I was looking for another job. But that absolutely happened to me yesterday. I was like, but you know, but and then what happened? So during the course of the night, I get a text message saying that we missed something. Like we missed something in a game. Like the score was wrong. And this is the same individual that was working on the resume. So during that moment, now granted they might not be working on it anymore, but now my brain is like, well, this person was working on something that was for them, not paying attention to something I'm actually paying them for. I'm getting a text message from a team saying the score is wrong.
Yeah.
And am I utterly pissed off about it? No. I mean, am I shocked? I don't know if I'm even shocked, which is even worse. I'm at this point. Maybe I'm just like, sensitized to it at this point because I'm like, if I'm not dealing with it with a production company out of wherever United States of America, I'm dealing with it with that kind of stuff. So it's like, but at this point, I kind of just chuckle about it. It's kind of like a chuckle. I'm like, what do you? I tried. I tried. It's like I gave it my best.
Yeah.
I did my best. It's like yeah. Like okay, all right. But did you? But did you? I mean, because I sit here and I produced the game last night for you, right? And not because I had to. I wanted to. Right? It's a CBS broadcast. It's WNEM. I want to make sure that broadcast is great. I'm going to make sure the instant replays are great. And do I have to pay attention to the broadcast like everybody else? No. Why? Because I've done 3,000 of these things. And for me, it's pretty simple to do. Right? But, hey, yeah, and I like to joke around. I'm a joker. I like to have fun while I'm doing what I'm doing. So I'm doing that while I'm doing the game last night. The game was well produced last night. Not because I'm saying it's well produced, but because it's factual. Look at the broadcast, go look at it. It's a factually good broadcast. Now, was it the best broadcast I've ever produced in my life? Absolutely not. But it was a very good broadcast. And I had two very good commentators in the chair, which obviously makes things very good. But I didn't try last night, right? Because trying wouldn't have put in the stats in. Trying wouldn't have been paying attention to the certain things that were happening. Trying replays, right? You know, more than, I think we had 20 or we had 2 minutes and 40 seconds of overall highlights. 22 replays is what we used, I think, last night when I exported out. I deleted about 7 garbage ones. I think is what I did. Saves, shots, goal. Well, we only had 1 goal. And a lot of fighting. A lot of fighting last night. So we had a lot of fighting highlights. So a lot of fights. So, I from the perspective of trying, I didn't try last night. I was in that chair from about 5 o'clock until the game was over at 9.
Right.
We have producers that will here's the thing, right? I don't care what you do leading up to the game. It's what happens during the game that matters. And then when the game's over, it doesn't. So it's like, look at a soccer game. Okay, a soccer game is a 45-minute half and then a 15-minute halftime and then a 45-minute half. So it is, 105 minutes, right? Total time, 2 hours. Okay. We have, and again, I get it. I get it. I understand that. I'm not running like a sweatshop, but do you have to take a break in the middle of the first half? Do you have to use the restroom? Now, if you sat in the station for 6 hours, I get it. But do you have to leave? I mean, think about that for a second. How many commentators would love to go to the bathroom in the middle of half because like me, I literally drink a ton of water and coffee before every broadcast, and I shake my head 13 minutes into it because I have to pee, and I can't.
Right.
So I'm currently developing a commentator, pee recyclable, what do you want to call it, receptacle thing, so we can just pee while we're in our chairs. I'm working on that right now, patent pending.
Oh,
It's, but
like I'll go in the middle of that.
yeah, you're like, oh, but it's
Maybe
like,
if you can figure it out, man.
yeah,
But
yeah, but I mean, it's like, but I mean, but those are the kind of things, right? It's like, well, plan. I mean, go to the bathroom before, go to the bathroom at halftime, go to the bathroom after. I mean, you don't have to do it 10 minutes into the game. That's my only perspective on this, and it's not like I'm not gonna I'm not like singling anybody out, but I'm just saying that's like the kind of the world,
yeah,
and it doesn't matter what job I go to or what company I'm part of. It's the same thing. Smoke breaks. I'm not a non-smoker, so I've always been a non-smoker, so I don't necessarily get the whole smoking thing in the first place. But I would imagine there's a whole bunch of people out there who are disgruntled with the fact that smokers get to walk outside and go smoke for a smoke break, while the rest of us are just kind of hanging out inside their room and doing our thing. And so like those things I think would bother people. We my thing on this is this, and I think this is where we should end this point, is if we all just kind of focused on just being better overall people, and also at the same time just paid attention to the surroundings around us and how that maybe impacts people, the world would be a much better place.
yeah,
And that's true in
yeah.
a team environment too, right? It's true in a team environment. Again, I understand you want to be on the field. I get it. You want to be on the field, but maybe you're not on the field today for a reason. And so instead of being a baby and crying about it and pouting about it and acting about, oh my God, me, how about, well, coach, I'm ready when you need me to be ready. I'll be ready. Do I agree with you? Absolutely not. Fine. I don't agree with you. As a matter of fact, I expected players to say, hey, coach, I don't agree with you. I encouraged it. Great. Then I'm a firm believer in proving me wrong. You think I'm wrong? Great. Prove me wrong. Right? Go out there and put everything you can into it. And when you have a chance to be on the field, you show me why I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I can guarantee you there wasn't a moment, in at least from my perspective as a coach, that I was wrong when it came to selecting a player to be on the field. Because I just didn't see something from them.
Mm-hmm.
And if a player did do something that whatever, they got themselves into the field and they did do what they were supposed to do. But it wasn't one of those things where I can go like, man, I got that one wrong. No, you could see it. And
Yeah.
so we as players, we as coaches, we as owners, we as whatever, positions of leadership all the way down, if we all just change the mentality to saying, you know what? Okay. What's best for the team? And if you're not the right fit for that team, then they need to move on.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay. It's okay to walk away and go someplace else.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't feel like you're getting a fair shake, of course, go someplace else. Should you quit? Absolutely not. But I also understand that bad coaches can create that problem as well, right? And so I think that there's a lot of ways to look at it. But this mentality that it's all about me. And again, I think we're all guilty of being narcissistic in our own right ways, right? I think everybody has that in them. We can say, oh, that person's narcissistic. No, dude, we all have it. We all have it. We all have these little small traits. Some are very out there, and you can see them. And others, they kind of carry a little differently. But we all think, again, I always say this, Nathan, if the world was coming to an end, like right now, what would you do? Would you go down the street and grab your neighbor and run with your neighbor to the... No, you'd probably grab all your stuff and run out the door to wherever you have to go. You're not even probably thinking about your neighbor. It has nothing to do about, like, you don't care about your neighbor. It's like, in that moment, you care about self-preservation.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make you a narcissist? No, it doesn't. But it's like, in that moment, you're self-preserving yourself. Like, if things came to a head, I'd grab my entire family and go. And you know what that might mean? That might mean, and it sounds terrible, and people across the world probably say, you're terrible, John. It might mean my dog doesn't go with us. That sounds terrible. It might mean that, though. If we're talking about life and death, it might mean that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing. I love our dog. But it might mean that. Again, under certain circumstances, whatever. But I'm putting that in perspective.
Yep.
And so we have to acknowledge that's kind of it's okay to be that way. And self-preservation can definitely be about protecting yourself as well. Which means, hey, if you're on a soccer team and you feel like you're not getting your fair shake, and you can't get anywhere with your coach, because there are coaches out there that think entirely differently than I think, and they are all about their way or no, or it's my way or it's no way, right? And sometimes players just can't work in that environment, so absolutely they should go someplace else. And that isn't so much about self-preservation as it is about trying to be in a place that will be an environment that will allow you to grow as an individual, right? Because growth can come in a lot of different ways, but you don't want to like lose that part of it. And so there are a lot of players that would have to maybe leave that environment because there are bad coaches out there.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue there's a lot more good coaches than bad coaches, but
Mm-hmm.
There's mentality that I tried, and then there's mentality that it's all about me. I don't I've been accused of that. I would argue that a lot of times I misrepresent myself in some cases, or I'm guilty of maybe not being able to actually show people like who I really am, or maybe they don't see who I really am. I am a jokester. I talk about that all the time. I joke around a lot, and to a fault. Probably gets me in trouble more than it's worth. But I've never really changed who I am.
Mm-hmm.
But like when it comes to like this, right? I find a way to try to manage every situation the best that I can. And like situations last night, for example, where I'm on the phone and I'm in the studio talking with a production company 3 or 4 years ago. I mean, I would have been snapping at that person. I would have been probably like foaming at the mouth. Now I'm just like, now I just come back with some one zingers, little one-liners, little snappers, that way.
Right.
little whistlers,
Right. Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, oh, okay, all right, my guy, like, it's, and I have a little more fun with it, because to be fair, it's laughable what people say nowadays. It's like, what? Why are you saying this?
Yeah.
I'm like, because I'm like, big picture. Do you want something or do you want nothing? Because I mean, if you live in the world of nothing, then you don't have a business. But if you live in the world of something, you have something coming in, and that
Right.
pays the bills. I mean, so what do you want to do here? And they're like, no, we're not gonna. Okay, well then that's your choice, man. It's like, all right, no worries. We'll do something else. It's not a big deal. Yeah. It's
Yep.
like.
Yep. Yeah. At the end of the day. Yeah. And that's where being an I and a me person can really kind of derail things for you, because the people also at the end of they don't want to work with those types of people. And I understand that, maybe sometimes it takes taking a half step back in order to take a few steps forward, but that's what it really boils down to. And it's hard because you're always trying to ride that balance, right? You're trying to ride that line of looking out for yourself, but also looking out for what's best for the team. And I've been in that position before, because if anything, maybe I've been more on the other side, maybe a little bit, willing to bend over backwards for this, that, or the other thing, but leaving my own personal wants and needs aside at the same exact time. So it's trying to find that balance. It's trying to find that middle ground, because once you can find that, then everybody starts to succeed. But yeah, it's, also, I just think arguing qualifications is just ridiculous to me. You know what I mean? Like I feel like there are people out there who are less qualified at this, that, or the other thing, who could do a far better job than someone who's, been in it for as long as they have. That doesn't really mean a whole lot. I know people who have been in it for decades and decades who are, half as talented as some of the people that I know and that I've worked with. So
I laugh at it because it's like I talk about all the time. I've even said to you, and it's probably comes off as disingenuous or comes off as like whatever. It probably in some cases rocks like actual professional broadcasters to their core. It's like I got the Oakland gig purely on luck.
Mm-hmm.
And I've kept it because of how I manage it. But like that's legit how it happened. I don't like tiptoe around that. Like, do I have any business being a Division I basketball girls play-by-play? I mean, 3 years ago? No. Today? Yeah. Am I the greatest basketball caller of all time? Hell no. Do I even know the full aspect of the game? Absolutely not. But do I know how to tell a story? Yes, I do. And do I do it well? Yeah, I do it pretty good. I do a pretty good job with it. Am I the greatest ever? No. Am I the most polished? I am not. I don't pretend to be one. When it comes to soccer, I think I'm pretty damn good. When it comes to this game of soccer, I don't think there's anybody in my perspective. I think I'm better than a lot of people out there. But I don't need to go out there and tell the whole world that, even though I just did it right now. But that's more of me just saying my personal thoughts.
Right.
Came out. I'm not trying to be like the chauvinistic whatever. I'm just I was just trying to paint the picture. That's what I think personally. But I don't think I'm like the best, I just think I'm really damn good at it. And so, Nathan, I've had a chance to sit next to you in the chair, and I think that you're damn good. I think that what you and how you tell the story and the phrases that you come up with and the one-liners and those things, you do a great job. And you having the opportunity to call and being a part of in those environments is something that will absolutely come. Right, absolutely will come. You've already had a chance to do that at Oakland with me, and you'll have a chance to do it. Obviously, I'm sure hear more in the future. So it's just it can't be forced. And I think more importantly, if you we talk about this too. It's not about what you know; it's about who you know, and that's true in this world, right? Who you know really sometimes matters more than what you know and how you know it. And if you can build those relationships and not burn them, you can end up finding yourself in a lot of really cool places.
Yeah.
And that's what I would say is most important. But my guy, that's it, man. That's episode number 109. Is that right? 109 is in the books.
I believe so.
So there we go, right?
We're running out of player numbers. Although last night they were wearing triple digits in the soccer game that I did.
Well, they were 246. I think 245 scored the goal. It's like what the hell, man? 245 scored the goal. I think I'm hoping I've sounded okay. I don't know.
Great. No, you're great now. I don't know what you did, but
I don't know. I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. I just we just went from 3 to 2. That's all we did. But either way, we're happy that you stopped by. If it's your first time stopping by, hit that subscribe button, like us, share this with your friends and family. We'll be back at this tomorrow morning, Friday, June 27th, for episode 110. Can you believe it? 110. I guess that was like the end of the. It keeps doing that. That's weird. I don't.
We're going. We're not going. We're going again. All right, now we're going.
It doesn't matter. Well, I guess either way, we'll be back at this tomorrow morning, doing this all over again. We'll continue to expand on what we talked about today and so much more here on Inside the Game. Don't forget to check out us on Roku TV, on YouTube. Like us, share this with your friends and family. We'll be back at it again tomorrow morning. Same time, same place, right here on Inside the Game.